Hey, remember Ryan Lochte, that superstar Olympic swimmer with his own platinum grill?
This guy lives all out all the time, and now he has his own reality show on E called What Would Ryan Lochte Do? Watch.
What is the Lochte edge? Ryan Lochte.
You know, I've never been asked that question, what is the Lochte edge? I honestly have no idea.
You gotta tune into E this Sunday at 10 p.m. 9 Central and see this ultimate gold medalist bachelor in a whole new light.
Everyone you know will be talking about it. Hey everyone, I wanted to talk a bit about Lissandra. Now to start off, I'm going to break some bad news. Lissandra is not a mechanically complex champion, which means I'm not going to spend 10 minutes trying to explain every little detail about her abilities. All of her abilities work as advertised, and we didn't see anything we wouldn't expect. None of her abilities grant vision to nearby fog of war. By the same token, none of her abilities reveal her when she's in brush or otherwise in the fog of war, even if she lands them on an enemy target. So let's start with a quick overview. One of the very first things I noticed was her amazing attack animation, one of the very best in League. In other words, her attack occurs almost instantly once an attack command is issued. Her passive simply lets her get a free spell every 18 seconds, and this is reduced by 1 second for every crowd control she lands from her abilities. Her Q can land 1 crowd control per cast, but her W and R can apply several, and all of these apply at time reduction. Her Q is Ice Shard, a mid-range line skill shot that slows and damages the first target it hits in a line. If it hits a target, and only if it hits a target, it will shatter out and deal damage to targets in a cone behind the initial target. In other words, it's like Graves' ultimate, but at a shorter range and dealing magic damage. Here's what I like about the ability. It has a very short cooldown, down as low as 2.4 seconds at max rank with 40% cooldown reduction. It also deals fairly good damage. On top of all this, it has a very fast projectile, making it extremely hard to dodge. One downside to the ability is that a lot of champions outrange it and won't have to deal with it unless Lissandra closes in on them. Another downside is the very high mana cost associated with the ability. Even with blue buff, you can't just spam it unless you've got some other source of mana or mana regeneration. Her W is Ring of Frost, and this freezes all enemies in an area around her, damaging and rooting them. The root duration increases with rank. Ring of Frost deals roughly similar damage to Ice Shard and obviously brings a lot of utility with it. It has a very long cooldown in the early ranks, but at max ranks with 40% cooldown reduction, you can bring it down to 6 seconds, which means you may make use of it several times in a team fight. Again, a pretty solid argument for cooldown reduction. Her E is Glacial Path. This is a line skill shot that marks a point on the ground and travels towards it, dealing magic damage to any opponent's hit. Lissandra can activate the ability a second time while the shot is traveling to teleport to it. E has a 24-second cooldown off the bat, but this also drops way down with rank. With 40% cooldown reduction at max rank, it can go down to 7.2 seconds. The skill shot is somewhat easy to avoid getting hit by, but the fact she can teleport to it makes some initiates impossible to avoid, especially since she can follow it up with her Ring of Frost or ultimate. This ability is incredibly cool for one reason. Most blinks, as well as other actions such as item placement, can be used over walls that are almost twice as thick as the distance of the blink. Since this ability already has a long range, she can make it over pretty much any of the thickest walls in Summoner's Rift, and at really good angles too. It's easy to imagine some good gank setups by getting into unwarded brush or simply coming over a huge wall unexpectedly. You can also save a little time getting out of the base by using E to get over the Nexus. If you have home guard boots, you can take a step off the platform to launch your E, then walk back and refresh the run speed buff before activating again to blink past your Nexus. Lissandra's ultimate, Frozen Tomb, can be cast either on an enemy, stunning them briefly, or on herself, making her untargetable and invulnerable briefly. If self-cast, it is essentially the Zhonya's Hourglass effect. A slowing field expands outward from the target, dealing damage to enemies it touches. This field persists for 3 seconds. For a damage comparison, the first 2 ranks of Frozen Tomb have lower base damage than Gragas's ultimate, and the ability has a 70% AP ratio as compared to Gragas's 100% AP ratio. I've seen Frozen Tomb pick up kills and I've seen it save Lissandra players at opportune times. I think it's a pretty solid ability, but I don't think there's too much else to say in this regard. Now that we've talked about abilities, I'll share my impressions on her. I think she's a fairly solid champion, and in fact I really look forward to playing her. The combination of her crowd controls and her high mobility means she's going to have some incredible potential in terms of making great plays. I also like that she's a simple champion. It's been a while since I've looked at a new champion that wasn't overloaded with mechanics, and that Lissandra also feels like she's a unique champion is impressive. I think she'll be fine as either an AP mid or as a support. As an AP mid, she'll have the advantage of relatively easy farm, provided she's not against a strong long-range harasser. Even with a strong jungle ganker, she has an easy escape option as well as 2 easy-to-apply crowd controls. Even with her passive, doing exceptionally well in lane is going to require blue buff. It's not as bad as Anivia, but mana is certainly a core issue. As a support player, she'll have the lockdown capability of, say, a Leona, but unfortunately won't have the sustain or extra survivability of other supports. I do think we'll see her used effectively in this role, but I don't think she'll become a top support pick. I'd point out that her slows really aren't too strong. Of course, she has good crowd controls from her root and her targeted stun on her ultimate, but the slows aren't nearly as serious as, say, a Nasus or a Nunu. Thanks for watching this video. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more.